everyone. So sorry, as I mentioned, we as in me, forgot my charger at home, so we had to take a little break.
And I am telling her this has been a day. It's okay. Not in the big scheme of things, forgetting your charger and having to switch to a different device is not important.
But we appreciate you staying tuned, and in the last clip we talked about redistricting, we talked about the Ocoee retail pet store conversation on the 21st. Please go and listen in. We also talked about Pet Alliance donations, which we'll bring up again at the end. But right now we're going to talk about COVID-19 updates for this week.
Yeah, because we're hopping from one sad thing to another. I think we really want to be done with this. Our positivity rate does look better, I mean, from what they're giving us, but the rate of fatalities, the death rate is not better, and it is still, from the experts, a pandemic of the unvaccinated at this point. I'm sure there are stories out there, case studies, and just individuals here and there who have had breakthrough virus symptoms and breakthrough cases, but right now the people who are in the ICU and that are breathing because of a machine only are unvaccinated, and it's just tragic that we've been this is a preventable thing at this point. So
yeah, absolutely. About 3 weeks ago we were at that 20% positivity rate, then it went down to 17, then it went down to 14 last week. This week we're at 13.31, so it's
you have to remember,
down,
we were at 3%.
Yeah,
we had gotten down to 3 because we were being really careful. And then when this vaccine came out, we thought, well, we'll get there because we'll be able to get enough people vaccinated to get there. And unfortunately, there was just enough misinformation on the side of the sort of conspiracy world to really undermine getting there. And so my hope is that people who, at this point, I don't know anyone who doesn't have somebody in their life who's died.
Yeah.
And this has touched us all in different ways.
Yeah.
The one thing that we can all agree on every day that goes by is that we know there are more people being vaccinated, and those people seem to be doing really well, and the people who aren't are not. So, even if there's a chance of getting a breakthrough case after being vaccinated, it's so different than the devastating effects of COVID when you're not vaccinated. So, I'm sick of lecturing people about it because I feel like it's just a broken record. And quite frankly, I'm sad and I'm frustrated for our healthcare workers and our healthcare community and the doctors and nurses and scientists who devoted their lives to this and spend all of their time making sure that they're taking care of other people. And then those people seem to want to undermine it for the whole community. And I said this on Tuesday at the meeting. We had some folks that showed up and were angry about Orange County's position trying to get employees vaccinated. And, we're incentivizing with a bonus. We're also asking as a mandate. And they were angry about it. And, my really strongest feeling about this is that no one's forcing you to do anything.
Yeah.
But what we're saying is if you're not going to do it, then please don't come around other people. If you're not going to do it and you want to take that risk on your own, just don't expose yourself to other people, because there are still children out there that cannot get vaccinated. We lost a baby this week. That baby would not have been exposed but for an adult in their life who wasn't vaccinated. And that to me is, that's beyond selfish. It's just tragic.
Yeah, so if we run through the numbers, right now, unfortunately, we hit a really grave milestone. 50,000 people of Florida have passed away from COVID-19. We had the most deadly 2 weeks these past 2 weeks, and Orange County has seen the highest deaths in the month of August. So the next press conference that the mayor will be giving on COVID updates is tomorrow at 3:30 p.m.
Yeah, and just to keep in mind, we're still assisting people with rental. There's, for people who are behind in their rent, there is a program we have that's still ongoing, where it's a voluntary program with landlords and with renters, where going through the process can possibly be approved to help get caught up. I think there was some misunderstanding about whether or not those people needed to be employed. This is not connected to the unemployment system. This is just about backlog in your rent that was affected by COVID. So if at some point during this pandemic, the circumstances have affected your ability to pay rent, you would be eligible in that component. Now there are other requirements because this is federal grant money, but we can help you walk through that. There's some really great resources online right now walking people step by step through. Those kind of helpful points are working. There were more applications put through in this last cycle. And we just want to make sure that if there's money that's being sent from the federal government or from the state to Orange County residents so that they can get out of the hole with their rent, that we're getting it out. So please, if you have any questions about that, reach out to us or go to the OCFL.net website for just tap in COVID, and then there's all kinds of resources there.
Yes, thank you so much for going through this. I know we want to stop talking about COVID-19. We all do. I think the most disheartening thing for me personally are the numbers that we don't really associate with COVID, which are the number of deaths of people who cannot get into an ICU right now.
Yeah.
And I wish that my friends who are denying that this is as big of an issue as it is, or that don't really want to pay attention, turn a blind eye to this, I wish that they could see that it's affecting so many more people than we can even put into numbers right now.
Or just, check in with somebody in your world that might be a healthcare provider. I think I'm particularly sensitive to this, and this week, that frustration level goes up because I have those people in my family, and hearing from them and hearing from my friends who work in a hospital where there were so many codes, and one day they ran out of crash carts. And a code is when somebody's vital organs stop and they bring a cart there with some life-saving procedures. There's only so many of those, and we live in an area that has the best healthcare in the world.
Yeah.
And so it's really dire on those floors. My concern is that people who work in healthcare are going to be dealing with post-traumatic stress for the rest of their lives because of something that was preventable.
Yeah.
And so you're looking at what somebody called a personal choice affecting other people around them by making them sick, by not letting people who need elective procedures, even if those elective procedures are a lumpectomy, that's an elective procedure. Those things aren't happening right now in some places because they can't get into the hospitals. There are first responders that are really suffering right now with PTSD and with overwhelming anxiety. And so all of those things are a consequence of what these people are calling their personal choice. I'm like, that it's only a personal choice if you stay at home.
Yeah.
Once you
There's
go out
other people in the world.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
So
well, my analogy that I used that day is that you have the right to smoke if you want to smoke, and you can smoke and chain smoke. You can smoke without filters, but I don't really care. Nobody cares, right? But you don't have the right to walk into somebody else's place of work, somebody else's place of worship, somebody else's space, and blow smoke at them. And so, you have to think of a viral element like that as being that type of transmissible thing. That you can do whatever you want in your own space, but if you're going to go out into other people's spaces or go into places of business, then you have to respect their rights.
Yeah.
To stay healthy.
One thing that hasn't been said, and this will just be my last point on this, is Biden right now just passed a mandate for the vaccine that will impact 100 million citizens. I think that's amazing. I wish it didn't have to get to that, because right now, the Nipah virus is a 97% fatality rate that is being kind of brought up in the news more and more. I'm seeing it almost the way I saw COVID.
Is that another variant, or is that
the Nipah virus has been around for a couple of years?
I was going to say, the problem with the variants, and this is another thing people don't understand, if you study the science of the variants, it is partially because of this patchwork that we're getting as far as people's ability or willingness to get immunized.
Yes.
So the reason why we were able to eradicate smallpox and eradicate, for the most part, polio, was because of the comprehensive inoculation. And so this, the idea of building sort of that community immunity or herd immunity, we're not going to use those anymore because I think people just didn't really understand it. The idea was that it didn't give the virus a chance to find a host and change,
Yeah.
and another host and change, and another host and change. And so when we are able as a society to do that, that's when you see the eradication. And make no mistake about it, there's a long-standing history of vaccine mandates, and it's been upheld by the Supreme Court because of smallpox. You know, that is a still standing good law, that when it comes to the health and safety of citizens, that the government can mandate health care. And you know, once again, it doesn't mean that someone's going to come into your home and do something to you. You can stay there. But if you come into a place of work, another person's business, then you're going to have to play by the community rules.
Yeah, so that was exactly the point I was going to make, is that we are going to see much stronger, not just variants of this virus, but viruses in general, that they naturally occur, but they get worse the more that humans interact with nature that they otherwise haven't. And as we're deforesting the earth and as climate change is taking hold, we are going to see more pandemics and epidemics happen. So if this is a test for what's to come in the future, we are not doing a very good job if it takes us all having to mandate. It should be a willing thing that the public does, because we all care about each other and we care about public safety.
Think about this, we could have been done, right? And now we have immunocompromised people who've had transplants, people who are dealing with chronic disease, immunocompromised people who are getting their third vaccines, basically to protect themselves from bump vaccine.
Yeah. That's the last point that we'll make about that, is we obviously are emotional about it, but you know, please get vaccinated.
And if you don't believe us, just go on to a reliable source, and then back it up with another source. Johns Hopkins, great source. Mayo Clinic, great source. Not YouTube.
So let's talk a little bit about the BCC before we go into future events. The BCC, let's talk about what it is and then what updates happened this past week.
Okay, so Board of County Commission meeting Tuesday was anticipated to be a very long one and a very contentious one because of a land use case and a protected rural settlement. Crazy how we keep talking about these, isn't it? And the applicant withdrew their application. I want to send the biggest thank you to every single resident citizen and other officials. We had Carlos Guillermo Smith, Linda Stewart chiming in to emphasize the need for smart growth and the need for protecting our rural communities and our agricultural lands, and the need for putting density where density belongs, which is near transportation, near resources like big employers and schools and
like water infrastructure.
Yeah, so the idea of this development, this has been another one that's been in the works long before my time. Lake Pickett residents out in East Orange County have been part of a battle for so long that they formed Save Orange County, which Save Orange County now really does a great job of coalescing people when one of these things comes up, and that's what they did in informing people, here's what's at stake, and educating people. Okay, so when you go and listen to this, what does it mean? This isn't the missing thumbprint of the GROW, which was the name of the development.
Yeah.
What this is a piece of rural property that has its very own elements of nature and of character that need to be maintained. So it's not fixing a past missing element. It is it was its own application. It was its own potential development at what they call T4, right, which is the highest of the densities for that Lake Pickett area. So it would have been just devastating. And there are, for sure in that area, we know there are protected species. We know there are surface waters, that there are groundwater. So this was a bad idea. And so I was prepared to be here until the wee hours, knowing that people were coming, and I was like, all right, here we go. I went through the comprehensive plan with my highlighter, and because to me, what was really, really, really clear was that in that area, the original applicant, even though I hated all the check marks that they went through to be able to get the approval, at the end of the day, what that was a singular approval. So for another applicant to come in and say, oh, well, this goes into the study because look, we were in, you know, part of the original contemplated study conversation, but then when they opted out, that was the end of that conversation. And so this piece of property opted out from that original development, that owner opted out. And to try to then, after the fact, hop in was just calling it something that it wasn't. It was a new application for a new development in a rural settlement, period.
We got thousands of emails, which was really awesome. I just wish we didn't have to see such a public outcry in order to see things get withdrawn or to be voted down, because we have this comprehensive plan that's supposed to protect those areas that were already designated to be rural and to have that lifestyle.
My prayer, my hope, my wish, my working days and nights is for the idea of something, once it's called rural, is that they don't have to keep fighting for that, because we called it rural, we gave it that designation. Why do we then get to come back and chip away at it? And we just talked about Selnik in Windermere. I've got Avalon Rural Settlement, I've got Gotha Rural Settlement. They are all in defense posture all the time, which is not how it should be. We have a comprehensive plan. That should be comprehensive. Yeah. That should mean that when it's designated rural, and that's the zoning, that if some updated land use overlay wants to play with that, that it's a no-go. So we're just going to keep hammering away at it here. I just want people out there who were tuning in, that were involved in that Lake Picket discussion, that were involved in any of the other discussions about the rural settlements, to know that this is a marathon, not a sprint.
And just remember, for many of you, which I've heard a lot of constituents say, we voted for Commissioner Wilson to stop all of this. Much of this has been in the works way before she was ever elected, and she's only one vote.
I was going to say, even with that, I tried really hard in my time on the dais to explain the position that I have heard again and again, and explain what I feel like are very specific ways that we can make sure that those areas are protected. And more times than I'd like to count, it hasn't mattered in the majority vote. And so I'm going to continue to do that. I'm hoping that because of public involvement, this will, the understanding of what I'm saying up there will continue down the line of the commission. But as of right now, even this past meeting, even though this application was withdrawn for Lake Picket, there was another application that was bordering, it was a zone rural agricultural, it was not in a rural settlement, but it was being proposed to be developed in a different way. And one of the things that's specified in that land use is the need for open space, the requirement for open space. And the applicant admitted using their own drainage pond, retention pond, which is, by the way, where all the runoff goes with all the poison in it, as part of their open space requirement. Not for the use and enjoyment of citizens, not for what we need in mature growth and in actual natural recharge of water, but literally a retention pond.
This is real life, everybody.
That they were going to use for their open space requirement. And I was the only one that saw something wrong with it. And I was the only no vote. So it's going to, I'll continue to try to explain it. We will continue to try to raise the public conversation in the hopes that the understanding by other elected officials and by other people in administration, that it starts to seep in, that the citizens are onto them. Yeah. Citizens understand now that there's got to be a way to push back, and I'm going to continue to be that voice.
I mean, thank you for being a public servant and actually listening to the people and considering
their
vote when you make yours.
You're my boss.
Yeah. So that's all I'll say about that. Some good news from the BCC, which everybody talks about affordable housing. It is such a hot topic, but the Housing for All vote.
So this was a really very exciting piece of legislative action, and kind of a chock full of kind of sad stories this week, because we all know that the housing inventory is low, and we need to make sure that there are different price points.
It's at a crisis level.
One of the things that I get really frustrated with is that every time we try to make sure that we're not putting housing in the wrong places, we hear, oh, but the affordable housing crisis, the affordable housing crisis. They're very unrelated stories, right? So the developments that we're looking at being in the wrong places, the price points are not the type of price points that will really help that workforce, the missing middle income, lower income. So we need all those price points, right? We need to be able to afford housing at every stage of our lives.
Yeah.
Whether we're first time out in the employment market, or getting ready to retire, or transitioning, or coming off an illness. These are all things that people who are going through need housing for. This past month, and each month a commissioner rotates, being on the procurement committee and overseeing the procurement process. And I was just fortunate enough to be part of the procurement committee the month that we were seeing bids for low income and middle income and affordable and workforce housing, and really beautiful plans, really qualified builders who do just that. There are developers and builders who do just that, and they understand actually how we can partner with them to bring it to life. So seeing that process gave me great hope. This is an investment that you've made as a taxpayer in a trust fund that then made money that we can invest to try to make sure that there are price points along the way for all incomes. Because right now, part of what we see is that because Orange County is so expensive to live in, that people who work here at different levels of workforce salary are driving in from other counties. Well, that means they're going to have to get a car. That means they have to have insurance. That means they have to have gas. First of all, not great for the planet, not great for everybody else that's on the road for anything else, including people that are visiting here, and not great for them because then they're literally beholden to a car. And what happens when that car breaks down? They live in a different county. They can't get to work. So those things are all tied. We're going to keep talking about it. These particular investments were in really great, it's good locations, areas that are of need. We're going to continue exploring some areas in District 1 that have some good opportunities for different price points and more affordable housing opportunities.
Yeah. I love having those conversations
Infill.
about affordable housing, infill. It's really needed. And I actually read an article this week that said that people are actually trying to beg landlords to pay more rent than what's being posted because the housing crisis right now is so bad that people are actually overbidding for rent in certain locations, which is driving up that demand even more so. And so if you work here and make even $15 an hour, you can't afford rent right now.
Yeah, the entry-level rental is not affordable for I would say starting salaries of most careers, right? We're talking about the starting salaries of teachers, of firefighters, of people in the public defender's office. It would be difficult to afford what right now those entry points are.
And then you had a constituent, that lives all the way out in District 1 that emphasized that struggle of having, minimum wage
Yes,
jobs.
and they're not going to give up their housing because right now, obviously, it wouldn't make as much sense to go somewhere else because it's closer to employment, knowing that if they get out of where they are, even if it's a struggle to get transportation right now, it's still a safer bet than trying to relocate. So, my conversation with people is then we need to make sure that transit loops in all the areas where there are affordable price points existing. And I think building affordable price points and affordable housing in areas that already have good opportunities for transit should go hand in hand with bringing transit to areas that could really, really use it.
Awesome. Well, in the last few minutes that we have here, we have some things coming up. First of all, Yom Kippur. Maybe you can tell me because I don't know. I do not.
Yeah. So it's this is a day of atonement for my Jewish friends out there, people who are practicing and who are observing today. It's a day of reflection and atonement. It's a day of fasting, and to really think about where we've been, where we're going, and to absolve ourselves of maybe wrongdoings. I personally, and I think this is a very personal part of this day for me, is to really reflect on times and places where I could have done it better, and then trying to use that as a reminder going forward. So I tell my kids when they get the hunger pains, I'm like, that's a reminder. So the hunger when you're fasting is a reminder and a consciousness and an awareness. And so I'm not a great faster, and I really like my snacks, but I really also think it's important for the reminder that there is a lot of work to be done. As a civil servant, I have a lot of work to do. As a human on this planet, I have a lot of work to do.
Yeah.
And so this is the day for all of that. I think today was particularly heavy, being our Day of Atonement, being Yom Kippur, and then also hearing about the tragedy at the Pet Alliance. And so thank you for bearing with me today in my not as uplifting a mood, but that's part of being a human also. And so I thank you all for being here today and hearing about all this. If you have questions about Yom Kippur, I am not an expert.
It seems like a really spiritually connected thing to your body and to that thought process of reflection, and I think that's really important. A lot of people should have something in their life where they do that reflection.
It to me feels, so this is this time of year is the High Holy Days in Judaism, and it is a reflection, and it's a sort of this idea of forgiveness and a renewal to looking to making amends. Yes. So in peace is always an underlying principle in Judaism, and looking for that place, that common ground of peace. And so
we all need that. Right?
We all need that. I'm working on it, working for it. So thank you for coming with us along on this journey, and even today on a really hard day.
It is Hispanic Heritage Month. I saw a lot of my friends sharing personal stories about that, and there's a festival and parade this Saturday. So.
There's so much great stuff. This makes me, I know that a lot of times we sit here and talk about our frustrations and with the things that we're trying to change or fix in our community, and that's part of our job. But I'm also so grateful for our amazing diverse community and this Hispanic Heritage Month. This is it's been on the books in the country for a very long time, but it feels really special when you live in this area because we have such an amazing community, and the celebrations really are sweeter right now because of how much trauma we've been through recently. We had some surprises actually going down into the chambers on Tuesday from a Hispanic supermarket that was a sponsor and left some goodies and
some yummy goodies.
That cultural immersion of hearing the language, tasting the food, hearing about the history, finding out about the geopolitical struggles and what brings those communities into our community to make one community. And so it makes me very grateful to live here.
We got a notice, I forgot to tell you, I just added this, Suicide Awareness Month is apparently September as well. So if you have any questions about mental health resources that are provided by the county or in our network, please email district1@ocfl.net.
Yeah, and just check on your people. Not your people, just check on people. We all, I think, go about our lives not realizing the struggles that are going on inside the people around us.
Especially now.
And so just asking if they're doing okay. And that's a simple question, but then listening also after you ask. And that's a harder part. But there's just a lot of suffering, and we do need each other. Even if we try to be tough, we need each other.
Yes, and it's also World Cleanup Day this Saturday. So Foundation of Florida Environmental Protection will be doing a cleanup on John Young Parkway at 9 a.m. So if you can come and help clean up the world, please join them.
And I will tell you, there's nothing more therapeutic than doing something like that. When you can get out and
move your body,
volunteer, sweat it up a little bit, and see a difference in what you're doing, and actually literally cleaning up. And it does feel good to do that, especially right now. So thank you for participating.
And the last thing I will leave you all with is Big Sand Lake community meeting. We've had tons of emails about the water levels and about questions with the I-4 Ultimate project. And so on September 20th at 6 p.m. we will be posting all about that on September 20th.
There's going to be some information from the various departments that have been involved over time, and we want to make sure that we are a conduit of information. I think there's an understanding that some of the information that we get from the departments and from the community, that sometimes doesn't always come all together. So we're really hoping to get questions answered and some communication lines opened, and then look forward to progressing and getting some solutions.
Yeah, so that'll be at Lake Buena Vista High School, 5:30 to 7:30 on September 20th. So please let us know if you have any questions.
Yeah, and I want to thank everybody out there in that area for really being so engaged and involved. I know it's frustrating, and we have made a lot of noise here and created a big stir and barked up the DOT tree, and that's Department of Transportation, and we're trying to really come at it from as many angles as we can to find solutions. So just know that is a high priority, and hopefully on September 20th we can have some staff give feedback and give some information that's helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. Ernest, is there any way you can test for questions? No questions? Awesome. Thank you all so much. Have a happy Thursday. And do you have anything you want to say closing out?
Take care of each other out there. Take care of yourself. And we will see you soon.
Yeah, have a great afternoon, everyone. Thank you.